Hey guys, today I'm going to take you along on my journey to troubleshoot a problem I'm having with my Hughes Power Watchdog surge protector. It's one of those that cuts the power if the voltage drops below a certain threshold, and of course also protects you against surges and other dangerous conditions like an open neutral. So my hope is if you have this exact problem that I'm about to show you, this will save you a little bit of time. So the problem that I'm having is I'm plugged into shore power right now, and I've got my surge protector permanently wired in here. And again, this is the Hughes Power Watchdog model. It's a 50 amp version, and it is the Smart Surge Protector plus the EPO. But check this out right here. I've got this red light on down here, and it says will turn red when park power neutral is missing. And so that's the problem that I'm having that I want to solve today and take you along with my journey. But basically I noticed this about a month ago, and the only reason I noticed it is I happened to be opening up this panel to check something in here, and I happened to notice this red light down here, and it kind of caught my eye because it's usually not lit up red here. So at first I thought it was just maybe something I hadn't noticed a while, because again, I had no other symptoms. I had full power to the coach, no error codes or anything down here, and of course the face is still white, and I've got power in the coach. So I emailed Hughes about it, talked to their support through email, and they said, yeah, I mean, that red light is exactly what it says right here, that it indicates your neutral is missing, supposedly. However, they said if the neutral is missing, this is also supposed to turn red. In other words, this white face is supposed to light up red, and then it's supposed to cut power going out of the surge protector, the EPO. That's really the EPO feature, so that you're not having a dangerous condition on your coach, without a neutral wire. And so they were, puzzled as well, because if this is red down here, then the face should be red as well, and you shouldn't have power running to your coach. Where in my case, I've got full power running to my coach. I've got a white face. I just have this mysterious red light down here on the bottom. So that really leaves us with two possible scenarios, at least in my mind. And the first one seems almost inevitable at this point, even without doing any testing. And that is that the Hughes Power Watchdog device is defective. Because think about it, if that little red light on the device is supposed to indicate an open neutral when my neutral is missing, then it should be cutting power to the coach, and I should see a red face lit up on the front. And remember, none of that is the case here. I've got a white face, I've got full power to the coach. So that's certainly a possibility. The second one is that maybe I do have a power problem here. It's plugged into my storage site here at the barn where I store the RV when it's not in use. And so maybe I do have an open neutral. Maybe something changed or something wiggled loose here at my storage site. So I'm going to investigate all that today. But either way, it seems like whether my power is good or bad, it seems like the Power Watchdog device is not functioning properly, because it should be cutting power if my power is truly bad here, and it shouldn't have that red light if my power is good. So I hope that makes sense, but that's kind of where I'm going with the troubleshooting next. First thing I'm going to do is pretty basic and something you can do real quickly. I'm just going to take one of these standard 120 volt outlet testers and plug it in right here and see what kind of reading that we're getting. And so you can see we've got the two orange lights lit up here, and that indicates correct according to this little outlet tester. So the Hughes Power Watchdog is telling me that I've got an open neutral right here. And if that was the case, you would see just one orange light lit up over here according to this little tester here. And so it appears that I have a neutral, at least at this outlet here. Otherwise I wouldn't see this center one lit up. Next thing I'm going to do is take a voltmeter here and check the input on the Hughes Power Watchdog, and then also check the output here on the bottom. So the input's up top, and they've got this little protective rubber, almost like a gasket, that covers up the terminals. And so I can real carefully just pull that off, and you want to be very careful doing this. By the way, do all this at your own risk. I'm not an electrician, I'm just an average RV owner, but I'm kind of taking you along on my journey. So if you're not comfortable doing these things, definitely consult with an electrician or an RV tech. But basically I'm going to check now that these terminals are open, and I can take probes to them. I'm going to check and see what kind of readings I'm getting out of the actual device itself. So I've got a real basic volt multimeter right here. I've got it set to 600 volts alternating current, and then I'm gonna put these two to the terminals and see what kind of reading I'm getting. In theory, if I don't have a neutral and I connect these, I should not be getting any readings whatsoever, because you have to have that neutral or that common in order for the multimeter to give you a reading. So I'm going to take one of these terminals and touch the white wire, which is my neutral or common, and then the other one I'll go to the two different legs, the red and the black in my case. Again, those colors could be different for your RV, but in my case, the white is the neutral or the common. All right, so I'm gonna stick my black onto the white here, and then I'm gonna go first check the red side and see what we're getting. So I've got both of them touching there, and let me hold the multimeter up so you can see I'm getting 125.2 volts. I should not be getting any reading if there was an open neutral, because then I wouldn't be registering anything on here. But let's go ahead and check the other leg and see. So I'm just going to take the red one over here that I had on the red and move it over to the black. All right, so now I'm checking the other leg, and same thing. I've got 125.7 volts, which is perfect. So that tells me that what's coming into the Power Watchdog up here, the input, it is officially registering a neutral, because again, if it wasn't and there was a problem at my power source or something else, I shouldn't be getting any voltage readings up here whatsoever. But let's also check the output down below here, and I'm just curious to see if I get the same readings. So now we're looking at the output here. It's got the same thing, a little gasket over the terminal, so I'm going to peel that off, and then I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to tap the black to the white wire, the neutral in my case right here, and then I'm going to take the other one and tap it to the line 1, and it's a little hard doing this one-handed, but whoops, you can see here we're still looking at 125.7 volts on the one leg, and then if I move it over to get the leg number 2, switch that one, then we've got same thing, 125.2. So that tells me that the voltage coming out of the Hughes Power Watchdog has a neutral, and we confirmed before that the voltage coming in also has a neutral. All right, so it seems like there's a problem with the Hughes Power Watchdog, almost as if it's giving us an erroneous reading down here with that red light lit up. Because again, if there is truly an open neutral, it should be red up here, and it should be cutting power and not sending it to the rest of the coach. Now, like I said before, I'm at my RV storage site here, plugged into 50 amp power, and nothing has changed here at my storage site. It's always been the way that it has. No recent modifications or anything have happened. But let's just say that you were attached maybe to an RV park somewhere, and you're getting a strange reading like this. You know, what if the problem is your power source? And so even though I'm pretty confident that I don't have a problem with my power source down here, let me just check it just to make sure that I'm getting a neutral at the pedestal itself. Now I've got a standard power pedestal here at my storage site. It's a 50 amp connection, just like you would have at any other RV campsite. So we've got our neutral in the middle here, and then on either side we've got our hot legs, and then your ground up top. And so I'm going to test it the same way with my voltage multimeter here. I'm going to go ahead and plug my black into the neutral or the common, and then I'm going to go on either side and check each legs. Now these are pretty big slots here, so you kind of have to angle your probes so that you get a good connection there. And you can see, whoops, it slipped out here. You can see that we're looking at 125.6 volts. Hopefully you can see that in the video. And then we'll check the other leg. Go over to this side. And we are looking at, same thing, 125.4 volts. So obviously if you're at a campsite, you know, do this at your own risk, because wherever you're staying, they may not want you, you know, sticking a multimeter into the 50 amp connection there. So again, do this at your own risk, but I wanted to show you kind of, that's my thought, to test just to make sure that my source here, my 50 amp source, is not, you know, causing a problem. So basically so far we've confirmed that I have a neutral here at my source. We've got a neutral inside the input going into the Hughes Power Watchdog, and then we also have a neutral coming out of it. But let's revisit our scenario for just a moment, that you're at a remote campsite somewhere. You're not at your home base, you're not at the storage site where you normally plug in, and so you're plugged into some foreign power at a campsite somewhere, and you're getting an error code or an error light on your hardwired surge protector, in my case the Hughes Power Watchdog, showing me that I've got an open neutral supposedly. So what do you do in that situation if you don't have a voltage multimeter that you can diagnose and do some of those tests? And furthermore, like I said earlier, the people at the campground, the management, may not want you testing their power pedestal like that. So how do you work that out? Because if you go to the campground management and explain the problem, they might start pointing the finger at your RV saying, well, your surge protector is the problem, or it's something inside your RV, right? How do you prove that to them? And so this kind of got me thinking that it's probably a good idea, if you have a hardwired surge protector on your RV, to have a backup surge protector that gives you all those different indicators, so that you can test. If you end up on a pedestal where you're getting error message, you can test with another one to see what's going on. And so I found this one on Amazon. It was a warehouse deal, where somebody returned it basically for only $50. And it's a real basic surge protector. I've seen this same body and design from other brands, so it must be something that's produced by, one source and it just gets rebranded. But this one's real basic. I think it's 4,000 or 5,000 joules of protection, but then it gives me all the different indicators there, as far as open neutral, open ground, missing L1, L2, and so forth. So from now on, I'm going to keep this with me as a backup so that I can test, and then you can real quickly plug this into the receptacle at the campsite and see what's going on, kind of like getting a second opinion basically. So imagine that I'm at a remote campsite, getting everything set up. I take my 50 amp power cord, plug it into the campsite power pedestal, and then I see that open neutral LED, the red LED on my Hughes Power Watchdog that's hardwired inside the coach. So if I've got an inexpensive backup surge protector that's got all the indicators like this one here, I can real quickly pull this out, plug it in, and then get a second opinion real quick to see, is it the power pedestal or is it something going on inside the coach here. So you can see I've got all three lights lit up here, indicating that the power is on. If it was an open neutral, then I would only have one green off to the left there. And then you can see down here, it shows that the surge is active there. Now I will say that on the camera, sometimes I've noticed these LEDs come in and out, and I think it has something to do with the frequency of the shutter speed. But in real life, all three of these are lit up, and same with the two down here. But really the point I'm trying to make is, having a backup like this is something that from now on I'm going to carry with me, because this will give me a real quick second opinion to know, should I be troubleshooting the power pedestal at the campsite, or let the campground management know about it, or is it something inside my coach that I need to work on? So at this point, it seems like all signs lead to the Power Watchdog surge protector being defective, that there's something wrong with it, and it's giving basically a false positive. But let's try one more thing. Given that this is an electronic device, sometimes just rebooting or restarting something like that will clear an error message. And so let's go ahead and plug in the RV one more time. It's been sitting without power now for about a minute. And just plug it in and see if the very fact of unplugging and plugging in again will clear that error message. So we go ahead and we got it plugged in now. And I just heard the contacts engage. But let's go over here and see if we're getting anything different. Nope. So we still got that red LED down there that's supposedly saying we have an open neutral. So after all this troubleshooting, I'm going to conclude that this device is giving us a false reading. Something is defective inside of here, because remember, if I truly had an open neutral, whether or not my power is the problem here at the campsite, my storage site, or something in the wiring is loose inside the coach, then this face should turn red and it should cut the power going to the coach for safety, and none of that is happening. And so now I'm going to replace this unit here that I believe is defective with an identical one. And since it's an identical replacement, we're just disconnecting the output, the input, unmounting it, and then mounting the new one and putting the same exact connections. And it's really pretty straightforward. I've got the power disconnected on the coach completely, so nothing is plugged in. There's no power. That's very important. Make sure you're disconnected. But really all we're going to need is a flat blade screwdriver, and then either a Phillips or a screwdriver with a Phillips attached to it. All right, so I got the old surge protector replaced with the new one here. Again, it's an identical swap, and so I'm just matching up all the wires just like before. You probably noticed that it is pretty difficult working with these thicker gauge wires to get them seated, properly in the terminals, both the input and the output. And so it did take me some time to get them all seated properly, but when I'm all done, I like to come back and just gently do a tug test on each one of the individual wires to make sure that they're seated properly. And when I did that, I discovered that my ground wire was not, and so it pulled right out. So I fixed that one, but definitely check to make sure they're all seated properly first, and double check and make sure the colors are consistent coming in and coming out. And so next is the moment of truth. We're going to plug it in, but before I do that, let me answer a question that I've gotten quite a few times. I did a review on this about a year ago, and I'll put a card and a link up for that if you're interested. But in that video, a lot of people ask me, what do you do if you're at a campsite and this surge protector completely fails, right? Because it's hardwired, and so you can't just unplug it. Like if you had the plug-in version, you can't just unplug it from your power pedestal. I mean, it's hardwired. So what do you do? Because that could really make a camping trip, a miserable experience not having any power. And the answer to that question is, when I installed this, I did not cut this cable that's coming out of the output. So basically this before went to my transfer switch, and so I did not cut that power cable. It went to the input basically for my shore power, and I basically disconnected it there and fed it into this output, and then bought an entirely separate cable up here, a new one, 5-6 feet long, same gauge, same exact wire, and then ran that between the input and my transfer switch. Now if you don't have a transfer switch, that's going to be your breaker box instead. But basically in doing that, if this ever does fail and I'm at a remote campsite, all I have to do is disconnect those 4 terminals coming out of the output and return this to my transfer switch. And then it's basically like I have no surge protector and I'm back to how it was before. And if that ever happened, it would probably take maybe 10 minutes or so to make that transition. I could then take that cheap, temporary surge protector, that plug-in version that I showed you before, and just use that for that particular camping trip until I can sort out what the problem is. But I just want to throw that tip in there for those that are curious. Definitely don't cut your output cable short from wherever it came from, whether it's your transfer switch or your breaker box. Don't cut that cable. Instead, buy a completely separate one. But let's check now, moment of truth, and see if swapping them out has solved the problem. So let's go here and connect our shore power and see. Nope, not that one. Here we go. Let's go ahead and plug it in. And I just heard the contacts flip on it. So, hey, look at that. No more red light here. So the red neutral light is gone. And so basically that confirms that something was wrong in the circuitry of the old unit that was basically giving us a false readout there on that neutral light. And we've confirmed now that swapping it out solved the problem. So there was nothing wrong with the wiring as far as I can tell all along. It just so happened that the unit itself went defective. Well, anyway, guys, at least it's fixed now, and if you're in the same boat as me and you've got that red open neutral light on your Hughes hardwired surge protector and you've done the troubleshooting that I showed you, and you determined that, hey, your pedestal and the wiring in your coach is just fine, and you're suspicious that it is the Hughes hardwired surge protector that's the culprit, then you saw in my case just swapping it out, literally making the exact same identical connections, solved everything. Now, as far as to answer the question, what caused it to go bad like that, I have no idea. I mean, I've never had a lightning strike, at least one that I'm aware of. I've never had any kind of shorts or anything else that I can think of that possibly could have triggered the hardwired surge protector to go bad like that. I just don't know. And so maybe I can have a conversation with the manufacturer and show them, the results here, and maybe they can offer an explanation. If they do, I'll put it in the comments below. But I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to give me a thumbs up. And as always, thanks for watching.